Hey everyone, this is Carter, and welcome to this episode of Making It Up. The show where I just sit down with other writers and we just talk about whatever comes to the top of our head, or heads collectively. I'm going to plug a few things because by me telling you everything I have going on, it dovetails nicely with the conversation that you're going to listen to in this episode. So through Unbound Writer, you can check out my one-on-one writing coaching. You can check out my self-guided online courses. I do have a online seminar coming up in October, The Dark Art of Writing Thrillers. So if you're interested in a 2-hour class on kind of tips and tricks for creating that awesome suspense in the month of October, please check that out. I'm super excited for that. If you head over to my YouTube channel, you can see episodes of Making It Up. I also have specific teachings guided towards writers on there. I have meditations for writers. I have just kind of long form talks, just talking about the industry, talking about inspiration. So you can just go to my YouTube channel, Carter Wilson Author, and check all that out. You can subscribe to my newsletter that comes out every month and is full of good things, including winning a signed copy of one of my books. So the reason I tell you all of this is because I just had a lovely, fantastic conversation with the highly talented Andrea Bartz. So Andrea is the author of multiple thrillers. Her most recent one is The Last Ferry Out. And I was really looking forward to this conversation, and it definitely hit on all cylinders because I've been following her career through her newsletter, which she puts out twice a week, which is great. And she is somebody who is very candid about the realities of being a writer, the realities of the publishing industry, which, I tend to do that as well. I think she probably does it even more so, to her credit. She's somebody who had a massive breakout hit with her, I believe it was her third book, We Were Never Here, which was a Reese's book club pick, instant New York Times bestseller. And then her follow-ups from there have sold well, but haven't sold as well, which is pretty much what always happens. But it's a reality check. So we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot just about the industry in general, and how to set your expectations, how to deal with agents and editors when they're not grooving on maybe an idea that you have, or maybe something that you've already written. How to be grateful towards readers. It was we barely talked about any particular book at all. We heavily focused on the life of being a writer and an author. And it was inspirational for me to talk to her because she's fantastic. And I think there's just a tremendous amount of good advice that she had in this episode that I think will resonate with all of you. So listen closely. This is a great one. This is my conversation with Andrea Bartz. So you're in New York, right?
I'm in New York. Yeah, right now I'm in Brooklyn.
Okay, but you didn't grow up there.
I grew up in Milwaukee. Yeah.
Okay, that's a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Haven't looked back. People are like, "You think you'll ever move back?" I'm like, No.
Yeah, I grew up in LA and I moved to
Okay.
New York for school, upstate New York, and then just have never looked back and gone I'm in Colorado now, but it,
Okay. Not
it's
all the way
great.
back.
It's nice to just leave, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, in a way, I'm like, it's sort of lucky that my family isn't from somewhere like cool enough that I would think about going back. Like, no, there's nothing really for me in Milwaukee. Like, we're good. I visit, I
Well,
leave.
yeah. And once you get to New York, that's all. It's the level of like things to do kind of ups the game so much that it's probably hard to compare, I would think.
It is true. It is true. It's hard to live anywhere after New York, as they say, but
And
I feel
then
like
we met at dinner at the independent booksellers dinner, right? And earlier this year.
no, I don't think we've met in person. We
Did we
met,
not meet there?
we did a panel
Oh, maybe
together.
that's it.
We did a
Yeah.
panel together because I remember your amazing setup behind you. Um, and I don't remember now whether we were talking, it was a virtual panel, and I don't
Yeah.
remember whether we were talking about books or about Substacks or whether we were or newsletters or maybe it was like a PR. talking about PR and marketing kind of thing. Is
Oh, that might have been it.
that
And
it?
yeah, that might have been it. I was conflating my Sourcebooks events because you're not. I know you're not with Sourcebooks. You're with Ballantyne, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I know, yeah, and I know you're obviously. I did kind of that Q&A thing with you,
Yeah.
and I know you're like you're heavily invested in communication, which is just a personal thing with me. Like I think it's so important to do that, to put yourself out there, to do your newsletters, but to also have, you know, worthwhile content. And I know that's a very subjective kind of statement, but I think we see from a
Yeah.
lot of authors, people who, oh my God, it's been 6 months. I should put a newsletter out. And then it's just like, hey, my book's coming out. And then that's it.
Right. Right.
I invest a lot of time in my monthly newsletters. Yours are far more frequent than that. You're putting stuff out every week, every 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, usually twice a week. So
Twice a
it,
week. Oh my goodness.
yeah. It's a lot. Sometimes I'm like, is this too, does nobody want this many emails anyway? But yeah, keeps me busy. Not that we don't have enough going on, but yeah,
Yeah,
I really admire too how you have so many have, a finger in so many pies and do the retreats and the consulting and the podcasting and I imagine that takes a lot of time too. So
it
yeah, I
does.
think
But I
the
think
same
all
thing.
of it, we do it because we love it, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I know sometimes it feels like a stretch, but I mean, I'm of the mind that, starting now, your presence and your ability to communicate and be in front of people and to have a voice and a face is going to be, it's your currency, right?
Yeah.
I mean, your books are important. Of course they're important, but I think it's going to be harder and harder to just separate out just a story
Right.
from an author. And so those who are maybe kind of putting themselves out there in a vulnerable way, I think maybe are more memorable. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're really onto something like I don't know, as AI is just getting better and better and readers are going to start hopefully the readers who care are going to care about the authors behind it. And like if you're faceless and not in communication or in community with the book world, then like
Yeah,
what separates you from some AI written book with a fake name on the front?
totally. I know
No.
it's horrifying.
It's really
And what
scary.
I also appreciate about your content is you're one of the very few authors. I mean, literally, probably less than 10 that I can think of, who puts themselves out there in terms of like, yeah, let's talk about sales. Let's talk about numbers. Let's talk about some of the kind of the harrowing realities of the publishing industry, which nobody talks about that.
Yeah.
We see these Instagram posts and everything's great, and everyone thinks that because you have one book published, you're a full-time author. And I know I push against that, and I know you go out there and be like, here's the reality of it. You want to make a living doing the here are the actual numbers of my books.
Yeah.
Is that scary to do that?
Oh my God. I mean, every time I've done it, there's a period where I feel sick to my stomach and I'm like waiting for the author police to come and take me
Right.
away.
The
Like,
author police kind of being
right?
what? Like the publisher and your editor being like, we really wish you wouldn't be sharing so much.
Well, it's a great question because once you actually drill down on it, it's like, well, I can't really come up with a good reason I shouldn't be sharing all this stuff, right? Like
Right, because
anyone,
who has access
yeah,
to BookScan or whatever.
yeah, like the decision makers already know how many sales I've made. That's like
Yeah.
more or less public if somebody has, yeah, book scan or subscribes to be able to find that stuff. And then yeah, we have like some cone of silence where we're not supposed to talk about advances. And I mean, I haven't, some people have gone way beyond me and listed out all of their earnings and stuff, which good for them. But when I was in a full-time job, I also thought it wasn't polite to talk about money and we shouldn't share it. And now it's like, well, who benefited from that? Like clearly just
Right.
the employer, right? Like
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't
And I've never been told by any publisher, like, don't do this, or it's taboo to do this, or it's frowned upon.
right,
I think
right.
there's a certain part of you, like all of us, I think writers with the whole imposter syndrome, where when somebody kind of says, oh, so you're a full-time writer or whatever, I immediately want to just say, oh, you have no idea how bad the money is. Like, and I'm like, why do I immediately go to that place? but it
Yeah.
is healthy to kind of say, here are the realities of it. And you've got
Hmm.
an interesting story because you've always been, from my perspective, you've been well published, um, and successful by most measures of the industry. And then you have We Were Never Here, Reese's book pick, which, that's the Midas touch, and instant New York Times bestseller. So that's all a different level. And now you're kind of lately saying, yeah, but look what happened to my follow-up. It wasn't as strong. For those of you who think this is a trajectory that's predictable,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, yeah. I really had this idea that like if I hit certain external landmarks, certain goalposts, then I'd be set. If I could just be a New York Times bestseller, I would
Mm-hmm.
be set for the rest of my career. If I could
Mm-hmm.
get, oh my God, a celebrity book club like Reese, like that'd be it. I'd be set for life. And there are some authors for whom like getting that exposure at the right time does mean that every book of theirs from there on out hits the New York Times bestseller list. And hats off to them. They are doing something magical and really engaging readers. And I did not find that to be the case for me, and I haven't found that to be the case for a lot of other people I know who had, one breakout book, whether it was their debut or in my case, it was my third book, that hit the list. And then in a way, you almost end up in like a publishers refer to it as a downward trajectory. I think of it as a bit of a vicious cycle because bookstores and everyone for your next book is like looking at their numbers and they're going, oh my God, we sold so many copies of her last one. Let's order a bunch. So their expectations are very high. And then my next book sold pretty well. I thought
Yeah,
better than any of my other books before. It was The Spare Room, but nowhere near as many as We Were Never Here. It was not a book club pick. It didn't get anywhere near, the New
right.
York Times bestseller list. Had a lot of returns. And so then when this new book came out, The Last Ferry Out, it just came out in May and it had great reviews. It had a lot of press. It seemed to be getting a lot of buzz. I was like, okay, we're back on track. Like it's got a great cover. It's sort of, the Spare Room, the one I had done in between was a little more domestic suspense. It was a little different. It was like, okay, we're back, baby. This is a true thriller in the vein
Mm-hmm.
of We Were Never Here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what happened is a lot of bookstores, all they do is look back one book and they went, oh, we ordered a bunch of The Spare Room, but most of them weren't, we ended up having really high returns. It didn't actually sell that well. So
Right.
I'm going to order even fewer this time around. And so you start to get into this vicious cycle, right? Of
Yeah.
like, oh, well, the last one didn't do as hot as we wanted, so we're going to kind of downgrade this time. Which I say hopefully not to be depressing, but just to share the reality of like
Right.
nothing guarantees anything.
Right.
And I'm very lucky to still, my next two books are on contract and they're coming out with the same publisher. And I feel lucky I get to keep doing this. But then also to your point, yeah, like people don't realize, you know, I'm spinning a lot of different plates in order to make it work,
Right.
right? In
Right.
order to make it as an author, as a full-time working author, just like you.
Yeah, and I think there's so much to unpack there, and not the least of which is the time between books is almost always at least a year, if not 18 months, upwards of two
Mhm.
years because of publisher schedule. So who knows how reading tastes change during
Right,
that time. So you can say this is exactly in the vein of We Were Never Here, but maybe that audience has shifted in taste or whatever. You just don't,
right.
you can't know that. And you know what, my, what I've seen from interviewing a couple hundred authors who have wildly different stories,
Yeah,
I think one of the hardest things is the debut that takes off.
yeah,
Because if that's not followed up, they are in purgatory. It feels to me, somebody who's got a little bit of a track record, then hits, I don't know. I feel like your name has been out there, so it's
yeah,
not, the
yeah.
and publishers don't need you to sell 100,000 copies. They don't
Right,
need you. I mean, it's pretty interesting when you break down that. I mean, you want to because you're trying to make an income from it, but if you sell at a mid-list level, and even if you don't necessarily earn out your advance, you're still worthwhile, is what I've been
right,
told.
right,
Um, which is amazing because you always think like, all right, unless it's a bestseller, they're going to, get rid of me. I'm like, no, they want to develop you.
right,
They want you to have a career with them. Is that you've been your
right.
experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm the rare author who I signed with my agent in 2016 and got my first book deal in 2017, and I've had the same agent and the same editor ever since.
Yeah,
So I've never switched, and I've been very, I mean, knock wood, I've been very lucky that I haven't had the external thing like, oh, my editor's moving and I'm getting inherited by someone else or anything like that.
totally.
I have been orphaned, which I know is the experience of a lot of authors. But part of the reason I really liked working with the same editor throughout is that, she's willing to greenlight my next idea based on kind of a treatment and a sample. I don't have to write the entire thing, which you generally do if you're going wide. So she'll greenlight the idea and I can start working on it and know it's happening before one of my books comes out. So it sort of takes off the pressure of like everything
Totally.
is riding on this.
Yeah,
Right.
totally. I'm the
And
same
that,
way. Yeah,
yeah, I just want dovetailing advances. I always want to be working on something that like keeps me sane, that reminds me like this is why I'm doing this so that I can sit down and tell these stories, not so that I can sell books or not sell books or hit certain,
totally.
external goals or whatever. So, yeah, having that consistency has been great. And it means I know my team really well. Like they sort of know how to position me. I'm not an unknown entity. And of course, if I had had a worse experience, then maybe it would have been the right move to move. It would have been the right decision to go somewhere new where I could be the shiny new thing. But
Yeah,
right now, anyway, it feels like, oh, they're investing in me long term.
yeah.
Um, and they haven't just lost interest because of a book here or there not exceeding expectations. And
Yeah,
like that,
and I don't think authors appreciate that enough,
yeah.
because I've been with I've only had one agent, and I've been with her since 2004. Uh,
Okay, wow.
and so everyone's always looking at like, well, if I'm not successful, yeah, maybe it's me, but could be my agent, could be my publisher didn't do enough. And then you go to another publisher, like, oh, well, they don't do much either.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, that's the reality of the situation. So and sometimes it's just a matter of the market has to meet the book,
Yeah,
and that can miss paths by years.
right.
You just never know. So to your point, you're writing something that you love, you're finding the joy in the act of writing. And I truly believe if you kind of write from that perspective, I just want to storytell. Yes, I want to learn. I want to be open-minded to feedback. But if I'm telling the story I want to tell, things will work out. It might not, it absolutely won't be as I expect. um,
That's for sure.
but if you're doing it from a place of passion, I think it will happen. As long as you're willing, and it might take 30 years. Who knows how long it's going
Mhm.
to take. But if you're trying to chase the market or blame agents or whatever, I think that's a tough path to go down.
Yeah, and I think like something that we both talk about in our branding, and I think is important, is like seeing yourself and your books, as a brand, to your point about sort of being that, having that author
Yeah.
cachet.
Yeah.
But it's like, how can you think, people ask me, like, do you think anyone can make it in writing if they just keep trying? And I kind of say, like, not necessarily.
Yeah.
Because yes, you need, writing chops and you need a great story and you need a great hook and all those things. And I think a lot of that can be taught, you can study it, but also you need to have the mindset piece to keep you in the game because it's going to be really hard. And you need the ability to think of yourself as a small business owner and to be making business
Totally.
decisions, right?
Yep.
So, to your point about, oh, maybe I should switch agents or maybe it's my agent's problem, most of the time it's probably not. But also you need to be able to do that math of like, is my agent the right agent for me now? And I'm
Right.
not just going to stay with somebody out of a fear of, the devil being safer feeling than the devil you don't.
Right.
So I think always having as like one piece of the writing career, like, yes, I'm doing this because I love it. And the way that I make it sustainable is that I find the joy in it and I think like a business person and surround
Totally.
myself with people I want to work with. And like if you can
Totally.
marry those two things, then I think you can do it.
Which means that you hopefully have some degree of business acumen. Um, and like if you're starting any business, you always hear this was like it was so much harder than I thought or whatever. You gain perspective just through doing it and through being
Yeah.
immersed in it. And so doing it for 20 years, you get a sense of, Oh, it's really what I found really helpful was finding community, finding other
Mhm.
authors, talking, whatever it is. You don't know that ahead of time. And then
Right.
you have to develop the intuition to know, like, I think it would be good if I started a podcast or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Right.
But you don't have any of that sense before you kind of jump into any of it.
Yeah, I think you're so right. I mean, I think there's a lot of resources out there now, which is great. I mean,
Mhm.
there's your podcast, there's, my Substack, there's other amazing podcasts like The Shit No One Tells You About Writing and a lot of
Right.
other ones. The problem is there's almost too much information right now, and
Totally.
some of it is really bad. So some of it
Like,
is,
what kind of advice have you heard? And you don't have to name anything, but that would be considered like, oh my God, don't listen to this.
okay, so something I see on Threads, I don't know what it is about Threads that it's such a cesspool of bad takes, but somebody made a thread where they were like, look, like, it took me however many hundreds of queries to find my agent, which is fine. That's a totally legitimate thing. But she continues, just look up any agent you can and just send them your query. Like, who cares? Like, find them. Here's lists. Here's massive lists of all of them. Don't even bother like trying to separate it out or personalize those letters. Just send it out. It's a numbers game. Just send it. And I was just like, you people are the reason that it takes agents months and months to get back to you because they're getting so much in their inbox that is not at all relevant to them. That is
Right.
bad advice.
It's a horrible advice. It's funny, like I'm not on Threads, but I'll once in a while I'll get a Threads preview on my
Okay.
Instagram feed.
Yeah.
And 95% of the time, it's just something very negative. I mean, it's always
Mhm.
writing related, but it's very negative, and it just feels like, ugh. And I think that's part of the intuition is knowing, like, whether it's social media or whatever, like what groups to belong to, what groups
Right.
to, have the voices in your head because, and I hear
Right.
things about like, oh, this certain Facebook group is so toxic. I'm like, well,
Mhm.
why would you be part of that? Like,
Yeah.
what good is that serving you?
Right.
So I try to avoid, I find Instagram to be kind of a happy book place as much as anything is.
It's
Just,
hanging on.
yeah,
The happy place.
it's hanging on. But but you have to choose something. You have to be visible somehow, and
Right.
it's getting harder and harder to do that unless you're
Yeah.
really willing to spend time and money into it, which I've learned kind of is worth it. Hiring your own PR firm and
Mm.
to supplement the publisher and but you have to be kind of smart about it. But it's an opaque industry, so
Right.
you're never going to measure an ROI on almost
Exactly.
any move that you make.
No, that's exactly it. And that's the problem. It's like here we are, we're all entrepreneurs. We're all creating a consumer good in a sense, right? We're all like
Totally.
creating something that we hope goes on shelves and people buy it. And yet, I mean, can you imagine if a company like produced one item every 2 years and put it
Right.
out and then didn't do any market research beforehand in order to, create the packaging or the product, didn't really do any marketing afterward to figure out what was making people buy it, what they liked and didn't like, and then just threw up their hands and said, well, we'll try again in 2 years. That's
Right.
absurd.
Right. Right. It is absurd. And it's also kind of beautiful in a way because it's so ignorant and innocent. And that whole axiom about, the manuscript having to land in front of the right editor at the right time. There's something kind of cool about that. It's like because that makes it very human,
Yeah.
and it makes it very frustrating as well. But when that
Yeah.
editor just is like, "I totally get this," then you've got a cheerleader who, and
Right.
that's what you kind of have to have. Like you were saying with your editor, they know you, they love you. Of course, everyone wants to see those massive sales, but they also understand, like, yeah, you're in it for the long haul. You know what you're
Mhm.
doing. Why wouldn't we have this person as an employee,
Right.
for tenure?
Right. Right. As
I
like
think
an
the smart
asset to our
people do
team.
that. So,
Yeah. I think it's a
have
really
you
good tip.
learned different things lately? Are there things that you're like experimenting with now or exploring? Like, this is a different direction that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've started having more kind of candid conversations with my agent about like, okay, I had the one book do really well. I had the other book do okay. And then now I've had this newest book. The sales have been sluggish. I have not been secretive about that, which is disappointing. And so as I'm working on my next one, I've kind of said to my agent, even as I was pitching ideas for it, like, I want this to sell well. I care about it being something that I care about it being something I care about, right? Like, I want to tell a story that I want to tell, but also like, guide me. And I pitched her some ideas that, including one that was sort of speculative fiction. And she was really honest with me. She said, I'm never going to tell you, like, no, you may not write that thing that you're passionate about. But I will tell you, like, if we want your audience to follow you, we want your current readers to follow you, and you want to be finding new readers, like, and you want big sales, there's just not that kind of market in this idea that you just pitched in the speculative realm.
Right.
So what if we find something in between? And kind of the one I'm working on now is sort of a horror thriller mashup. I wanted to sort of push a little bit out of that straight feminist psychological thriller moment because it felt like Gone Girl came out at this point, what is it, 15 plus years ago? Like, it
Oh,
feels like the
yeah.
sort of market's moving, and I want to be cognizant of it, and I want to be strategic without trying to write for the market, like you
Right.
said, because honestly, who the hell knows what anyone's going to be reading in 2027.
Totally.
So I feel
Totally.
like now that I've been in it long enough, it's kind of like, okay, how do I keep myself interested and keep myself from getting bored or like I'm feeling like I'm writing the same thing over and over again, while also being strategic about doing this long term and like making a living doing it. And I think earlier on, I wasn't thinking that way yet. It was just like, do I even have another book in me? I don't know. And
Right.
there was that sort
Right.
of fear behind it.
Yeah, and again, I would suggest that's not writing to the market. That's just being the small business owner side of your
Mhm.
brain, say, let's see what the market is doing, and is this something I want to do?
Right.
Because you're not going to write something you don't want to write.
Right.
I think it's interesting for me. I've always, certainly my last six books or so have always been leaning horror, and
Right.
and that's just recently caught on, like in terms of
Yeah.
like my last book or whatever. And so sometimes it just takes time, but there have always been books that I wanted to write. I'll tell you the one that's coming out next year, I turned it in, and then they're really, of course they want to make sure it's got to follow up something that was kind of a breakout. And then my editor's like, it feels a bit masculine. And it
Oh,
was such an interesting comment. And she was totally right. Even though the main point of view, first person present tense, is a woman,
yeah.
but it was kind of a home invasion thing, and the people invading it's my Rage Against the Patriarchy book. So it was
Okay.
kind of these men breaking into this house. But then when I changed it and I made it creepier and added a second new characters, it fixed it. But I never would have seen that for myself.
Yeah.
But once she said it, it totally resonated with me. And she's like, for your audience, she said, I'm like, you're totally right. But you need to surround yourself with people who are very smart, smarter than you, who can
Yes.
identify those things, don't you think?
Yeah. Yeah. Who can see those things and who are willing to tell you no. I feel like that's so critical too. I mean, my pitch for my second book, my sophomore book, I was really excited about it. So The Lost Night had come out, and I had this idea of like kind of a quiet traditional mystery. It was going to be set at this like Christian parochial school in the Midwest, like where I had grown up and, bad things were happening. And correctly, I was crushed at the time. And now I'm like, give me the no's, give me the rejections. But at the time, yeah, my editor was like, I think it sounds like a perfectly good book. I don't think it has what made The Lost Night special. And that's what I want to find and keep doing.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I was like, well, I'm writing it. So it's gonna be me. It's gonna be my voice, it's gonna be my prose, it's gonna be my storytelling. And she was able to sort of isolate and identify like what to her made my debut feel special or different or stand out in some way. And then together we could figure out how to incorporate that into what ended up being a totally new and different idea. But I'm so grateful because looking back, that would have sent me on a completely different trajectory if she had just said, okay, yeah, if that's what you want to write. It's a mystery. It's technically the same genre. Off you go.
Right. Yeah. You do. It's because It's not just like, okay, well, I'll just do something else. Then you're talking about writing a book, right? It's not, it's a Herculean effort to
Yes,
do
you are
it.
investing years in this.
But you have to separate yourself from the work and kind of the feedback in a way. Because
Yeah.
some of I had my editor tell me once, she's like, I don't think this is the next book you want to put out for your career. And I'm like,
Mm.
holy shit, that's a heavy comment. And then we really broke it all down. And I ended up, we put it out, but it changed immensely. And it still wasn't a great seller. It was okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you could almost tell, like, she was right.
Right,
You know,
right. Like that's their job.
and the other problem is, I think if you're working with an editor at a publisher who's kind of has that attitude about your manuscript, and you go forward with it, even if it's modified, you probably, this is totally my observation, and I don't know if it's true or not, they're not going to be as supportive of it. You know, they're not going to
100%.
be antagonistic about it, but, you know, are they going to be as
Right,
enthusiastic come lunchtime as they would with something that they just adore and they want to really
right.
root for? Um,
Absolutely. That's just human psychology, right? Like if you've
totally.
rejected something on a, that doesn't mean you're not going to do your job. Your publicist isn't going to drop the ball or something. But like, yeah, if you had some gut feeling early on that this wasn't going to work, like really you're expected to now spend the next few years like trying to make it work and prove yourself wrong?
Right.
Yeah, I found I used to work in magazines. I had a journalism background. And so as an editor, I would go to these pitch meetings and I would pitch the editor in chief. She was the one who was the final say on, what every lineup was going to be, what every issue was going to include. And I remember having to explain to junior editors younger than me, like, if she says no, or even if she says, yeah, maybe, but I'll go back, maybe see if you can find another angle. Sorry, it's a no. She
Right.
has said no, and there's no way you're going to turn that ship around, no matter
Right.
how badly you bungled the pitch in that moment, no matter how much new exciting stuff comes in. Like,
Right.
sorry to say, once it's a no, it's really hard to turn that into an enthusiastic yes. So I always think the better route is like find a totally new way in. And I think that's
Right.
still true with books. Yeah,
Right. And look at that pitch or whatever that failed attempt is, not as a failure, but like, oh, what did I learn from this? What did I take?
exactly.
It's like the authors who try to like argue with reviewers. It's like, what are you trying to achieve? Like, or when somebody's trying to convince you of an idea and you're like, well, you're not going to be able to sit next to every person who reads your book and tell them, well, this is the symbolism of this.
Yes.
You know, once it's out of your hands, it's out of your control. And I think a lot of authors really have a hard time letting go of
Mhm.
things, especially
Mhm.
aspiring writers who've worked 10 years on something. And it's like, well, maybe you needed to work 10 years on this to do the next thing. Maybe this
Right?
was never, but they see it as a failure and not as a necessary learning experience and stepping stone. And that's a hard thing to learn, but I can't think of any other way to do it because failure is part of this or rejection's
Right.
part of this.
Right. No, I agree 100%. And I get it. I too don't like working on something and thinking this might not go anywhere.
Right.
Or, when you're working on your book and you can just tell that like the scene you're working on that day is like gonna have to get cut. Like you are headed down a dead end in this
Right.
little maze. Like you know
Right.
it in your gut. And sometimes that just means like walk away and go for a walk. But
Right.
often it's like the only way out is through. I need to write. Right now I'm working on a terrible first draft. I need to write the terrible first draft in order
Right.
to
Have to.
move on, right? To the
You
better,
have
to the
to.
better version.
Right.
And I heard the quote, I'm sure you read this too, of like musicians don't consider all the times that they spent practicing wasted because they weren't using that time as a performance. And in the same
Right.
way, like you are practicing writing, you are learning what works and what doesn't work. Whenever someone asks, should I get an MFA? I say, no, just write a manuscript. By the
Right.
end of that book, you will have learned so much,
Totally.
even if it never makes it out of a drawer.
Right. Musicians don't practice scales because it's beautiful music.
Mhm.
That's their homework.
Yeah.
And writers have their own self-imposed homework. I was writing something a few months ago, the terrible first draft,
Yep.
and I wrote this scene where this guy just finds a cat in a box outside his house. And at the time, I'm like, oh, this could be really interesting. It could have a lot of it. And the next day I'm like, what the fuck am I thinking? Like, what is he going to do with a cat? Like, what does this even mean? Like, and you just know it's going to be cut. But if you don't
Right.
sit down and write every day or most days, then you're not doing your homework. You're not
Right.
getting the learning because it all kind of it has to come alive in the editing. So you just get
Right.
so everyone gets so focused on like I'm going to write 5 pages and then I'm going to edit it heavily and that'll be week one. Like why don't you write 40 pages of
Right.
shit
Right.
and have 40 pages done?
Right.
It's a
Right.
much better feeling, I can tell you that,
Exactly.
because you're not
Exactly.
second
Like,
guessing yourself.
yeah, like just keep moving forward. It was a great feeling to hit 30,000 words. Was it a great feeling to know how bad they are and how most of them aren't going to make it into the final draft? No, that's 30,000 words. I'm on my way. I'm a third of the way there.
Right, because you're
Mentality.
exercising the muscle and you're keeping it
Yeah.
in shape. And so you know if I have to cut 20 and add another 30, I'm physically fit to do that
Yes. I
because
am
I've been through it
capable
all
of doing
before.
that.
Yep,
Exactly.
absolutely. So the
Yeah.
last ferry came out this year and then you have something next year or 2027.
Yeah, so the last Ferry Out came out in May of this year, and then the next one is going to be in 2027. So that's the one I'm working on now. I'm on an every other year schedule now, which has been much more relaxed. My first few were a book a year. You're a book a year,
I
or you
write
write
a book a year, whether it comes out in a year. Like this
a year?
last one came out January 2025. The next one's November of 2026.
Oh, okay.
So it's a big gap, even though I wrote it all in a year because
Yeah.
the publishers are like, well, summer's pretty full and it's kind of it's a snowy book. So
Okay.
they want to do a holiday kind of a horror holiday thing, I guess.
Okay. Okay. We
I
love
don't know.
that.
So
Okay.
yeah, so then you have this chasm where you're like, how do I, going back to the beginning of this conversation, how do I remain relevant? How do I, get people to remember who I am? Because I don't want to just hide for a year and plus, so it is putting content out there and
Yeah.
I don't know, it's all a crapshoot, but you have to stay relevant somehow, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to your point from earlier, like the way that we're gonna continue building readerships is by having people remember our names and not
Yeah,
just any one individual book, right?
right.
There's kind of an issue now where I think readers now, maybe more so than in the past, like they can talk about a book, but if you ask who wrote it, often there's nothing. They're not paying attention to the author. And I
Hmm.
mean, I'm guilty of this too. I'm guilty of this with songs. I can sing along to an entire like oldie song, for example, classic rock, but I could not for the life of me tell you who wrote it. And I think, one of the only things that we can do to combat that and to hopefully become the household name so that people are saying less, oh, have you read The Last Ferry Out? And instead saying, oh, there's a new Andrea Bartz book. I
Totally.
think, I think the way to do that, to your point, is like being a real person and forming community around you and responding to readers and putting your face on social media and just being out there and showing there's a
Totally.
person behind the books. I
Yeah,
think
I
that's
mean,
what we really
I
need.
respond to every comment, if somebody, unless they're trashing me for whatever reason. But like if someone's like, "Hey, this is our book of the month club pick," whatever. I'm
Yeah.
there, I'm talking and I'm even if it's just a thank you. I think that interaction is meaningful because it's meaningful to me that they're picking my book as the book of the month for their club. So why wouldn't I be grateful about that?
Yeah.
But I think that's important because people are like, oh my God, this person responded to me. And I'm like, oh my God, you picked my book.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we're both a little bit in awe of each other. And
Yeah, totally.
I read some anecdote. I was reading some profile of somebody who he was like the original The Wiz in The Wiz, right? He's had this
Hmm,
long storied career on Broadway, and I'm
hmm,
going to think of his name as soon as we stop recording. But I was reading a profile of him, and the reporter noted that as they were chatting in the street, as they were doing the interview, they kept having to stop. It's Andre something. I wish I could think of his full name. But anyway, some people kept stopping him as fans and like, oh my gosh, you're so and so. Can I get a photo with you? And he was
hmm.
so patient, so gracious, so happy to take a photo with them. And so finally, the reporter kind of made a joke of like, wow, you can't even get through a sentence. Like, does that ever get annoying? And he said, in this industry, you have two bosses. You've got the producers and you've got the fans.
Hmm.
and you can always get a new producer.
That's a
And
really
I
great
think it's
point.
kind of similar with us. Like we have readers. Like
Yeah.
we feel beholden to the publisher. We feel kind of like they're our employer because they're the ones paying us, but the readers are the ones who actually make our careers possible, right? Like that's who we're writing for.
Right.
So why wouldn't you, engage with them and be grateful and express how much it means to you that people are taking their time to pick it up in a world of TikTok and YouTube and everything else that people are reading your stuff? Like that's amazing. Why keep
Yeah.
that to yourself?
And it doesn't take that much time or effort. I mean,
Mhm.
let's put it in perspective. I'm not getting inundated with thousands of Instagram comments every
Right.
day. So appreciate those authors who do have that problem, if you want to call it a problem. But it just, it doesn't take that much time, and I don't know. I am still very grateful for any time anyone like randomly reads my book. I had somebody come up to me like I was interviewing Karen Slaughter at an event the other night, and of course, so everyone was there to see Karen Slaughter, but I was the one interviewing her, and somebody came up to me like, oh, I just read your book and I had no idea this was you.
Oh,
And that was like such a cool comment because it's like they just found the book and then
yeah.
they just happened to see me even though they're going to a Karen Slaughter event. And I don't know, that put things into perspective for me a little bit. I'm like, okay, cool. People are just reading for the love of reading, and it just happens to have been my book. So
Yeah,
when things like that happen, it kind of makes it all worthwhile.
yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, this is why we're doing this. This is the whole point, is to get our books out there into people's hands.
Totally. Well, we're going to wrap up. Before we do, we were going to do a little storytelling on our own. This is the making it up portion of the show where I've picked three books very much at random off my bookshelf. You're going to choose one of those books. We're going to choose a random sentence from a random page. I'm going to read that sentence, and that will be the first sentence in like a 2 minute long short story. So I'm going to read that sentence. You give me a sentence. I'll do a sentence. It'll be a shit show. It'll be great. Uh,
I'm so nervous.
and I think these are, yeah, me too. I think these were all, I was an MWA judge last year. And so I just got, probably 50 books sent to me. So I think
Okay.
these were all submissions from those. So I have Next of Kin from Samantha Jane Allen, Victoria Houston's At the Edge of the Woods, and Carlene O'Connor's You Have Gone Too Far. So choose one of those.
Ooh. Let's go with At the Edge of the Woods because that's such a they're all great titles, but that's a
Yeah,
great title.
that's a great title. It's a short book. Give me a page between 1 and 240.
Um, 38.
I mean, looking at this is huge font. This is probably a 60,000 word novel, is my guess. Page 38. I'm going to quickly scan page 38. Lots of dialogue happening. All right. Well, um, I'm just going to read. It's actually two sentences. It's a piece of dialogue, and you do whatever you want with it.
Great. Okay.
My father is dead. Did he sign his will?
My father is dead. Did he sign his will? Uh, the woman across from me at the coffee shop folded her hands on top of the folder.
She didn't have to answer. Just the way that she looked at me confirmed everything I had known since the time I was 15 when my father decided to stop talking to me altogether. There would be nothing left for me.
Does my older brother know? I asked.
She took a long pause before speaking, and rather than answering the question directly, she said something that caught me by surprise. What your father left you isn't money, she said. He left you a game.
My breath caught in my throat. Of course he did, I thought. After all of those unanswered letters and postcards from me began to pile up, I thought, he never wanted to engage in another puzzle with me. Of course, he was just biding his time.
Of all the thousand questions her simple words produced in my head, the one that floated to the surface was perhaps the most obvious. What are the rules? I asked.
A small smile played on her lips. In lieu of answering, she pressed her five finger pads onto the folder and slid it across the table toward me.
Oh, we got to call it there. That's great. That shit is great.
What read?
It's actually somewhat similar to what I'm writing right now, which won't be out till like probably 2028. But the idea of inheritance being a game. So when I read that, I'm like,
Fun.
oh, yeah, yeah, I know it is kind of fun. Well, that was exciting. And are you going to BoucherCon? I forget.
I'm not going to be at BCon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm missing out on all the fun, but I'll be there in spirit.
Yeah, well,
And
that's good. I'm only there for like a day and a half,
okay.
so it's not too quick. And my son actually, my agent's in New Orleans, so I get to have
Okay.
dinner with her. My son goes to LSU, which is about an hour
Oh,
away, so he's going to drive down. Although he just informed me today, he's like, "Yeah, I'm still getting over COVID," and I'm like, "Wait, you had COVID?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't tell you that." I'm like, "Dude,
like, don't give anyone else COVID.
Ryan, you're coming down to like hang out with me?" So
Yeah.
I don't know. We got to figure that out.
All right,
Kids
well,
these
don't get
days.
COVID because
No.
we need VoucherCon to not be a super spreader event.
No, well, I'm going to see him right before I leave anyway.
Okay, okay.
But I might have it next week. So we'll, Jesus Christ. Well, great talking to you, and it was nice to kind of dig into the insights of your brain. You've got a
Yeah,
lot. You've got a
same.
lot going on, and I was looking forward to this conversation, and it definitely paid off.
Yeah, no, same. It was really fun to talk. It's always, I love meeting a fellow like-minded author who kind of sees it as a 360 degree job.
Hustler.
So yeah, a hustler, if you will. So yeah, really
Yeah.
fun to connect and just, yeah, good luck with BoucherCon and the
Awesome.
writing and
Yeah.
congrats on all your success and everything. This
Yeah.
was really
You as
fun.
well. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Andrea.
talk soon. Bye-bye.
Bye. So that's it. That is my conversation with Andrea Bartz. It was a great one, and I loved the storytelling at the end. I could have gone on and on and on, but I was afraid I was going to get too much into the plot of what I'm writing now. So I didn't want to get carried away a little bit with it. But Andrea's great. I really love that conversation. You can check out her books and everything about her at her website, Andrea Bartz, BARTZ.com. And you can pop on over to carterwilson.com and buy my books and check everything out there. Or if you're looking for writing coaching or writing advice, or if you're interested in my spooky season, the Dark Art of Writing Thrillers online course, go over to unboundwriter.com and you can read about it and register to sign up there. That is it, folks. That is it for this episode of Making It Up. Another one will be out very soon, probably next week. In the meantime, as always, thanks for watching and or listening, and take care.